It was always quiet at United Bonded Logistics after 11 p.m. The kind of quiet that could suffocate a man if he wasn't used to it. But not Jerome. He'd been doing graveyard shifts there for 6 years. Same boots, same lunchbox, same thermos full of lukewarm coffee. Jerome was what you'd call invisible in plain sight. People walked by him every day. The truckers, the accountants upstairs, the managers in their tailored suits. But none of them ever really saw him. At 52, with salt and pepper stubble and eyes dulled by repetition. He was the kind of man who had long since learned to keep his head down and mouth shut. But this night, this shift, wouldn't go like the others. There were whispers earlier in the week about a high-value vault shipment. Federal transport, armored drop-off, triple code lock, one guy had muttered. Jerome had only half listened. He didn't care for gossip. He cared for peace and his hourly wage. But sometime after 2:27 a.m., just as the hum of the fluorescent lights grew louder than his thoughts, he noticed something. A red blinking light on camera 3. It was out. Then another blinked. Then another. And then the hallway grew quiet. Too quiet. Jerome stood up from his metal chair, cracked his back, and reached for his flashlight. Something was wrong. But what Jerome didn't know was that the next few hours would decide whether he'd die a forgotten man in a dusty booth, or wake up the next day with $6.5 million that wasn't his. The red lights were no coincidence. Jerome knew the security feeds better than his own kitchen. Camera 3 overlooked Vault Hall A. Camera 4 covered the service elevator. And Camera 5, which was now completely black, sat directly outside the room labeled High-Value Storage. He reached for the radio clipped to his shoulder. Control, this is Jerome at Station 1. Got a feed outage on multiple cameras. Can I get a status check? Silence. Crackling static. No response. He tried again. Nothing. That's when the air changed. He couldn't explain it, but it was like someone had opened a window that didn't exist. The temperature dropped slightly. The air thickened. Jerome had been through storms, threats, even a bomb threat once in '09. But this was different. He stood slowly and unholstered the key ring hanging from his belt. Over 30 keys, but only 3 mattered tonight. Keys to rooms that were above his pay grade, as his supervisor once chuckled. Well, no one else was around now. He moved quietly, footsteps echoing down the hallway like taps in a cathedral. The building had a way of amplifying silence. Then, from a distance, a sound. Clink. Metal on metal. Vault Hall A. He reached the corner and stopped. Took a breath. Pressed his back to the wall, flashlight off. Then peeked around the corner. Nothing. No movement. No shadow. But the vault door was ajar. Not open. Ajar. And that was impossible. Vault doors don't open accidentally. They weigh over 9,000 pounds and require dual code authorization. Jerome stepped forward, hesitant, heart pounding, not just because of fear, but because deep down, a quiet voice whispered something dangerous. This could be your one chance. The vault door yawned open like a mouth that had waited too long to speak. Jerome reached for the flashlight strapped to his belt. He clicked it on. A narrow beam cut through the dark, spilling white light across reinforced steel and gleaming marble. The vault interior wasn't like the movies. No gold bars stacked to the ceiling, no red lasers. It was more clinical. Cold, caged racks, steel containers, digital sensors. And in the center of the vault, placed oddly on a cart like someone had left in a hurry, 2 sealed duffel bags. Military grade. He approached, each step louder in his ears than it should have been. His breath fogged the beam of his flashlight. Protocol says report it. But the cameras are down. You didn't open this. You didn't touch anything. What if it's a test? The conflict battled in his chest. But that small voice, the same one that used to whisper during his night shifts, telling him there had to be more to life than this. It was growing louder. You're already inside. No one else is coming. This was left for you. He kneeled. One of the bags was zipped only halfway. His gloved fingers hovered, then slowly pulled it open. Stacks. Neat, pristine stacks of US $100 bills. Unbanded. No serial recording sheets. No tracking slips. No forensic die packs. Clean. Cash. Untraceable. His hand trembled as he reached inside and touched the money. The texture was undeniable. Real money always had a way of feeling warmer than it should. He didn't count. He couldn't. But from the size of the bag and the weight, it was easily 7 figures. 2 bags. A low hum vibrated from somewhere, possibly a backup generator or the building's power grid stabilizer. Or maybe it was just in his ears, his body reacting to the adrenaline surge. He zipped the bag shut, took a step back, then turned off the flashlight. In that silence and near blackness, Jerome heard one more thing. A voice. Not external, not imagined, but somewhere deep in the center of his chest. You could walk away. No. You've always done the right thing, and it's gotten you nowhere. But tonight, maybe you do something different. And he stood there, frozen between decision and destiny. The air was thin in the security room. Jerome stood alone again, back at the monitors, though the screens were still blank, static hum, time code frozen. He looked down at the duffel bags beside his feet like they weren't real. He blinked twice. Still there. He hadn't spoken to anyone in 4 hours. No walkie check-ins. No calls. No rounds from a supervisor. Just him. A tired man with 22 years on the job. And now, $6.5 million in unclaimed, unattended cash. He knelt again, this time checking for hidden trackers. It was something he learned from watching old crime documentaries. Always check for the insurance company's microchips. Nothing. Not a beep from his personal signal scanner. Not even a battery-powered transmitter taped under the lining. If this was a trap, he thought, it's the most elaborate one ever made, and I'm not worth that. He moved quickly now. Pulled out his personal backpack, the one he brought his lunch in, now empty. A tuna sandwich had never felt this insignificant. One bag fit inside with some effort. The second, he wrapped in his company-issued jacket, slung it over his shoulder like it was laundry. His heart beat out of rhythm. Not from fear. From clarity. He wasn't rushing. He was intentional. No alarms. No guards outside. No change in the air pressure. Just the flickering light of a dying ceiling bulb and the echo of a life-altering decision. Jerome walking down the stairwell instead of using the elevator. He knew the elevator had a functioning backup camera. The stairwell didn't. He had walked these same stairs 1,000 times, but never with this kind of weight on his shoulders. Literally. And otherwise. Each step made a small squeak. He winced at the sound but didn't stop. Ground floor. Loading bay. The place smelled like oil and rain. A cleaner's mop bucket sat untouched in the corner. He moved to the back lot. No guards posted. No gate arm lowered. The night was calm. Too calm. What kind of world leaves a man with 2 choices? Stay invisible forever, or take a shot at being seen, even if it's risky? Jerome reached his 2004 Toyota Corolla. Silver, dented, a cracked side mirror. He unlocked the trunk, placed the first bag inside. He sat in the driver's seat, started the engine, paused. Then he drove off. No chase, no alarms, just a man leaving a life that never saw him. And the city didn't even blink. The city never turned its head. No helicopters, no police scanners blaring his name. Just silence, as if nothing happened. Jerome merged onto the expressway, hands gripping the wheel tighter than ever. The money was in the trunk, but it felt like it was pulsing through his veins. Heavy, electric, real. I can still turn back, he thought, watching the city lights fade behind him in the rearview mirror. But where would I turn back to? That job, that stale locker room, that monthly paycheck that barely made rent? He had already crossed the threshold. There was no going back. He arrived home just past 4 a.m. His building was quiet. The kind of quiet that always makes you feel like you're being watched, even when you're not. He backed into his usual spot. took the bags upstairs one at a time. No neighbors in the hallway. No security cameras. Not in this budget building. Inside, he placed the bags on his worn-out couch. He didn't open them. Not yet. Instead, he went to his closet, pulled out a small black safe he once bought from a pawn shop. The kind used to hide birth certificates and leftover birthday cash. He stared at it. It felt laughable now. This wasn't just cash. It was possibility. A million questions flooded his head. Who did the money belong to? Was someone watching? Was this bait? Or was this his moment? His daughter calling him crying about overdue college payments. The eviction notice on his sister's door 2 years ago. His mother's funeral, held in a budget chapel because insurance didn't cover the right kind of cancer. The money wasn't for luxury. It was for survival. Redemption. Maybe revenge on a life that never played fair. He unzips the first one slowly. Crisp stacks of $100 bills. Strapped. Labeled. Like a bank shipment. No markings. No tags. Just raw cash. His breathing slowed. He reached into the bag. Touched it. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a movie. It was $6.5 million. And it was all his. But money this large doesn't vanish quietly. And even if no one saw him, someone would come looking. And Jerome knew. They already might be. Jerome didn't sleep that night. He sat at his small kitchen table, staring at the bags. His curtains were drawn. His phone was off. Even the clock ticking on the wall seemed too loud. That morning, the news broke. An armored van servicing the Federal Transfer Unit was found abandoned near Dockyard Street. Authorities say it's unclear whether the money was taken by force or misplaced in transit. No injuries reported. Surveillance footage is being reviewed. Jerome leaned forward. No suspects. No names. No camera evidence. Yet. His heart pounded, but he smirked. They're fumbling. Still. He knew that silence never lasted long. If the cash belonged to the Federal Reserve, Homeland Security would be involved. If it was off-the-books cartel money, things might get quieter and bloodier. Either way, they'd come sniffing. Cut to Jerome scribbling in a notebook. He jotted down questions like a detective. Where do I hide this? How much do I move first? Who can I trust? Answer: no one. He'd been invisible his whole life. The graveyard shift guard, the guy at the back of the room, the shadow. That was his greatest weapon. But now he was carrying a spotlight. He took one of the smaller bags and tucked it in a duffel. $200,000. Enough to move carefully, quietly. He didn't want to touch the rest until he had a long-term plan. He couldn't buy a car. That raised questions. Couldn't quit the job. Not yet. Couldn't stash it in a bank. That was suicide. He needed help. But not from anyone local. Someone outside his orbit. Someone discreet. Someone gone. Across the glass, Curtis "Slim" Matlock. A former fraudster who used to run fake import companies and offshore accounts before getting pinched on a tax sting. Jerome did security during Slim's trial. They'd crossed paths. Slim always said, "Everybody's watching the big fish. But if you swim like a guppy, you'll make it past the net." Jerome had a name. He had a phone number. But calling Slim, that was a deal with the devil. Still, this wasn't grocery store money. This was escape money. And escape came with a cost. As the sun crept through the blinds, Jerome made his move. He pulled out an old prepaid phone. One he hadn't used in years. Punched in the number he'd memorized from the back of a worn envelope. Rang twice. Then a voice answered, low and slow. "Been waiting for this call." The line went silent after that voice spoke. Jerome sat in his chair, his hand gripping the burner phone tighter than a gun. "Been waiting for this call. You Slim?" Jerome finally asked. "Used to be. Now I go by Rico, depending on who's asking. You're the guy with a storm on his back, right?" "Something like that." "How loud's the thunder?" Jerome paused. Then he said it plainly. 6.5 million loud. "Slim, now going by Rico, was sitting in his worn-out cargo pants and a hoodie that had seen one too many alleyways. But his mind was razor sharp. And when Jerome said the number, Rico sat up like someone had just told him they were resurrecting the dead. "You move it yet?" "Only 200K. Just to test waters. The rest's ice cold." "Where you keeping it?" Jerome didn't answer. Rico chuckled. "Good. You passed the first test. Never trust a man who wants the stash location on the first call." That call lasted 3 minutes and 19 seconds. When Jerome hung up, his hands were still shaking. He wasn't sure if he'd just dialed salvation or his final chapter. His co-workers still treated him like background furniture. He walked through metal detectors, nodded at the late shift cleaners, clocked in. But now, he was walking with fire under his boots. At break time, he stepped out to the parking lot and found an envelope under his windshield. No note. No name. Inside, a flip phone, 2 SIM cards, and a key with a paper tag, Locker 709, Central Storage Depot. Rico had made his move. The game was on. Jerome wasn't dealing with cops. He wasn't even dealing with criminals anymore. This was shadow work. White collar. Paper trails that never existed. Money that evaporated into shell companies, fake trade deals, and ghost charities. And Rico, he was the magician. He didn't make money disappear. He made its origin vanish. But even magicians can bleed. And every trick comes at a price. What's in Locker 709? A clean passport, offshore bank logins, and a black laptop with only one button, run. You'll know when to press it. How do I know you won't flip on me? Because if I do, you'll hit that button, and my face will be all over every Fed database from here to Prague. Jerome exhaled. This was war, not theft. And he was already deep in the trenches. He still had to move the remaining $6.3 million. And this time, it wouldn't be one duffel bag. It would be an operation. A smuggling campaign with no weapons, no bodies, just carefully disguised money. And one man watching everything unfold behind glassy, tired eyes. Jerome. The night guard. The ghost in the hallway. Locker 709 wasn't in some shadowy corner of the city. It was hiding in plain sight, inside a legitimate storage facility, the kind used by realtors, eBay sellers, and recent divorces. Jerome showed up wearing a basic gray hoodie, cap low, gloves on. No jewelry. No wallet. Just the locker key and nerves of steel. He found 709 on the second floor. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. Security cameras tracked every step, but that didn't matter. This part was clean. He inserted the key. Click. Inside. A Pelican case, black and waterproof. A laptop wrapped in a sealed bag. A thick envelope with "Access" written in block letters. And a messenger bag containing an international passport, a prepaid debit card, and flight itinerary under the name Michael DeWitt. That wasn't his name. But now, it was. The passport photo was accurate, just enough likeness to pass facial recognition with a trimmed beard and altered haircut. The laptop. Air-gapped. No Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, just one button, run. He didn't press it yet. Inside the access envelope were instructions. You'll be contacted in exactly 24 hours. Do not leave the city until then. Begin laundering $300,000 into the first 2 offshore accounts. Funds must be moved in art, not cash. Art. That's how they were going to do it. The gallery was called Urban Light. It sold abstract pieces, paint-splattered chaos mounted on brick walls. Rich people paid thousands for these. Today, Jerome wasn't there to admire brushwork. He was there to buy 2 paintings. One was titled Gray Flood. The other, Private Altitude. Each painting was priced at $150,000. But the real value was behind the frames. False backs, hollow cores, USB sticks embedded in the wooden rails. Digital wallets. Crypto keys. Washes of blockchain smoke and mirrors. By sundown, $300,000 had been legally paid to Urban Light for artwork. The gallery kept 10%, sent 90% into offshore vaults listed under a Panamanian shell company. All legal. All legit. No red flags, because the art was ugly enough to be believable. The flip phone buzzed. Unknown. Phase 1 complete. Hold position. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., enter Midtown Station and go to locker 14B. Use the burner. Confirm. He typed, confirmed. 1 locker down. 5 million to go. This wasn't a one-time job anymore. This was a system. An elegant, patient, precise laundering machine. Each part pre-planned, each layer designed to keep Jerome just visible enough to not be invisible, but never in the spotlight. That was the key. Be real enough to blend in. Fake enough to vanish. But as Jerome sat back, flipping through the forged passport and memorizing Michael DeWitt's backstory, he missed something. A dark sedan had parked across the street. A man inside was eating sunflower seeds. And watching. The man in the sedan wasn't police. Not officially. No sirens, no badge, no paperwork trail. He worked in the folds between agencies, hired muscle with an analytical mind. His job, track anomalies that don't hit the system. Jerome's pattern had just triggered one. A warehouse security guard who suddenly vanished from payroll. No resignation. No forwarding address. But a dormant phone that pinged once. Near an art gallery known for laundering cryptocurrency. And now, there he was, Jerome, now Michael DeWitt, moving like someone with instructions. The man in the sedan made a note in his leather pad. Target 709 possibly operational. Eyes on him. No contact until confirmation of Phase 2 drop. Jerome woke before dawn. He'd barely slept. He replayed yesterday's moves in his mind like a rehearsal. Locker 709. Heavy checkmark. Art gallery exchange. Heavy checkmark. Crypto wallet initialized. Heavy checkmark. $300,000 laundered. Heavy checkmark. Now, the second drop. Midtown Station. Locker 14B. Midtown Station thrived in organized chaos. People moved in waves, suits, sneakers, tourists, students. Jerome moved through them like vapor, barely touching shoulders. Locker 14B sat near the old vending machines. Rusty hinges. Scratched door. Still locked. He keyed it open. Inside, a rolled-up blueprint. A flip phone new. And a brown envelope that read, "No cameras here." He took the contents without hesitation, closed the locker, and merged with the crowd. He didn't know that the man from the sedan was watching from a mezzanine above, coffee in hand, casual, eyes trained on every blink and movement. Jerome got home, pulled out the blueprint. It was for Wellingham International Cargo Terminal. Dock 3B. Freight schedule. Gate override codes. Guard shift rotations. It clicked. The $6.5 million wasn't gone. It was waiting. And someone, or some system, was helping him walk it out, clean. Sender, execute Phase 3. You're going in. Dock 3B. Sunday, 3 a.m. Wear yellow vest. Use badge 4427. No contact. One shot. He just received the third directive. We let him take the shot. Then we move in. But who was we? And if Jerome was being watched, then who was really running the play? The $6.5 million wasn't an accident. It wasn't a loophole. It was bait. And Jerome, whether he knew it or not, was in the lion's mouth now. Sunday, 2:47 a.m. The Wellingham International Cargo Terminal was the kind of place that never truly slept, but also never really woke up. It lingered in perpetual dusk, sodium lamps flickering, forklifts humming like distant bees, and dockworkers too tired to notice new faces. Jerome wore a yellow vest now. Hard hat. Clipboard. Badge 4427 clipped casually to his collar. No one questioned him. Not when he walked past Gate C. Not when he scanned into restricted lanes. Not even when he paused near Dock 3B, where a single shipping container sat detached from the others. Unmarked. Steel gray. Quiet. He pulled out the instructions again. Padlock code 8-0-0-5. Inside, 2 crates. Remove the one marked EMX 19. Leave the other. The crate sat like a coffin. Wooden. Reinforced. And it hummed. Not electronically. No, this hum was dense. Wait. Money. Jerome pried it open. Inside, brick after brick of vacuum-wrapped stacks. Bundled cash. Labeled in euros. Damp with fresh ink. Untraceable. 4.3 million euros. All there. And at the bottom, tucked under thermal foam, a burner phone. Already ringing. Voiceover, sharper now, rising tempo. He answered. No one spoke. Then a voice, digitally filtered. Phase 3 complete. Final step. Unit 21, Florence storage. Your cut is ready. Click. Jerome just pulled 4.3 million euros from the container. Looks like a dead drop. No handlers. He's being used. Moving to Florence storage. Requesting tactical support for intercept. But before he could finish logging coordinates, his rear window cracked. A single bullet. He slumped over the steering wheel, coffee dripping from his hand to the carpet. Someone else was watching him. Another layer. Another game. This wasn't just a rogue security guard with a lucky break. This was a chessboard, and Jerome was only a bishop. The storage unit looked like any other. Metal door. Number stenciled. He keyed in the access code 0923. Inside, a small metal briefcase. And beside it, a passport, plane ticket, and one note. You were chosen. Don't look back. He never looked in the rearview mirror. Not once. Jerome didn't sleep. Didn't blink. Didn't stop once as he followed the GPS to a rural airstrip just outside Vermont Hollow. A single-engine plane sat waiting under a gray canvas of dawn. No pilot in sight. But the engine was warm. And next to it, a folded-up flight plan tucked under the windshield wiper, addressed in sharp, handwritten letters. J. Buckley, cargo handler. Flight path, Calgary, then private diversion south. Luggage, non-existent. He opened it, not because he didn't trust it, but because he needed to see it again. Inside, a bundles of crisp $100 bills, or a note with GPS coordinates scribbled hastily, and a photograph, a woman and a child, both smiling, both in front of a building labeled St. Mary's Burn Unit. Jerome's daughter, the one no one knew about, the one with skin grafts and hospital bills they couldn't afford, the one the system said would have to wait 2 more years for priority treatment. 2 more years she might not have. Suddenly, headlights. A dark sedan pulled up behind him, no plates. 2 men stepped out. Black coats. Boots without a sound. One held a clipboard. The other, a syringe. Mr. Buckley. Jerome didn't answer. They nodded. The man with the clipboard stepped closer and offered an envelope. Your contract was fulfilled. You'll sleep during the flight. No turbulence. No questions. Just arrival. Jerome glanced at the needle. Then at the photo of his daughter. Then, finally, he nodded. They didn't want him to be rich. They wanted him to disappear. A woman walks through the double glass doors with a young girl in a wheelchair. The receptionist smiles, hands her a treatment schedule. All paid. All cleared. No names asked. Just a single instruction paper-clipped to the folder. All expenses covered by Mr. Buckley, international humanitarian sponsor. He wasn't rich, but she was safe. And that was everything. They called it the cleanest job that never made the news. No fingerprints. No alarms. No chase. Only a chair that slowly turned in an empty control room. And $6.5 million that silently disappeared beneath the hum of a tired fluorescent bulb. It's been 7 months. Jerome goes by Enrique now. He serves coffee in a roadside stall with a hand-painted sign. La Segunda Vida, Second Life Cafe. He keeps a small photo on the shelf above the cash register. A smiling girl, now with smooth skin and laughing eyes. Holding a stuffed flamingo toy with a tag labeled St. Mary's. Tourists don't ask about it. Locals don't pry. But every morning, Jerome turns the photo to face the sun. No stamp, no name, just a familiar scribble. You slept through history. You woke up free. Keep dreaming. Inside, a single Polaroid. A warehouse in Philadelphia, now abandoned. Graffiti over the old bank's insignia. Underneath, a message. One of us always has to vanish. This time, it was you. Jerome never chased riches. But when the system left him sleeping beside a fortune meant to trap him, he did what most men wouldn't. He took it, not for power, not for revenge, but because someone he loved deserved a second chance. He isn't rich. He isn't wanted. He isn't lost. He simply is.